What if one job, a full-time job, is no longer enough to survive in America? In 2025, roughly 8.9 million Americans are working more than one job, and that's about 5.4% of all employed workers, the highest share since the Great Recession. Meanwhile, housing costs are skyrocketing. Rent and utility bills jumped sharply in 2023, marking the fastest real increase in rental cost burden since 2011. This isn't just about side hustles or the gig economy hype you see on social media. This may signal a deeper shift in how Americans earn a living, pushing many toward 2 or even 3 job households. But here's what most people miss. Understanding this shift is the first step to navigating it successfully. Stay with me. This video dives into why so many Americans are now forced to juggle multiple jobs and what's driving this trend beyond just side hustle culture. We'll combine hard data and real economic signals to understand whether having one job is still enough in 2025. More importantly, we'll explore what's being done about it and how individuals are adapting to come out ahead. Let's get into it. First up, the numbers, and they tell a story that's been building for years. According to the latest data, about 5.4% of all employed Americans hold more than one job in 2025, and that represents around 8.9 million people. Now, that share has held above 5% for more than 24 consecutive months, which is the longest continuous stretch at this level in decades. So this isn't a temporary blip caused by one economic shock. This is a sustained trend that reflects fundamental changes in the American labor market. But here's where it gets interesting, and where the conventional wisdom starts to break down. Among those holding multiple jobs, a significant and growing share now have a college degree, which completely defies the idea that this is only a low-skill problem or something that only affects people without education. We're talking about educated workers, people with bachelor's degrees, even advanced degrees, strategically picking up second and third jobs to meet their financial goals, or simply to cover basic expenses. The data shows that this trend cuts across demographic lines in ways that surprise most people. It's not concentrated in one age group, one race, or one gender. It's becoming a widespread American phenomenon that touches nearly every community. And many of these second or third jobs, they're not traditional full-time roles with benefits and predictable schedules. They're contingent work, part-time gigs, independent contracting, on-call shifts, and temp assignments. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, a substantial fraction of second jobs fall into these alternative arrangements, which suggests that overemployment is becoming structural, not just a temporary patch people use during hard times. What's fascinating is how this represents a complete reversal of the post-World War II economic model that defined American prosperity for generations. Back then, the assumption was simple: one job, one income, one career path, from entry level to retirement. That model is being replaced by something far more fluid and complex. But here's the important part. Fluid doesn't have to mean unstable. And complex doesn't have to mean impossible to navigate. Many people are learning to thrive in this new environment by treating their multiple income streams as a portfolio rather than a burden. So why are millions of Americans taking on extra work? The answer is simple on the surface, but complex underneath. Living costs are outpacing wage growth in most parts of the country. Inflation remains a serious burden, despite what headline numbers might suggest. In 2023, the All Items Consumer Price Index rose roughly 3.4% year over year, but that aggregate number hides significant variation in what actually matters to household budgets. The real pain? Shelter costs. And this is where the squeeze hits hardest. Housing, that includes rent, owner's equivalent rent, and housing-related expenses like maintenance and utilities, was the single largest contributor to inflation throughout 2023 and into 2024. In 2024, shelter remained the biggest driver of overall price increases. And for many Americans, this single category consumes a larger share of their income than at any point in recent history. The Census Bureau reported that 2023 saw the fastest real increase in gross rental costs since 2011, which means renters are feeling pressure that hasn't been this intense in over a decade. And it's not just housing, though housing is the elephant in the room. Food prices kept climbing, not just for restaurant meals, but for groceries that families depend on for basic nutrition. Utilities went up as energy costs fluctuated. Transportation costs surged, driven by vehicle prices, insurance premiums, and fuel costs that remain elevated compared to pre-pandemic levels. All of this shrinks the budget of average households and forces difficult choices about what to prioritize. For many families, a single paycheck can no longer keep up with these rising costs, especially in high-cost zip codes or expensive cities where the concentration of jobs also means concentration of demand for limited housing. The math is brutal and simple. If your rent goes up 10%, but your wages go up 3%, you're losing ground. So what do people do when they're losing ground? They seek additional income just to maintain baseline living standards, not to get ahead or build wealth, but just to stay in place. In other words, even a full-time job doesn't guarantee survival anymore in many markets. But here's where the narrative needs nuance. This doesn't mean the American dream is dead or that hard work doesn't pay off. It means the relationship between work and reward has changed, and understanding that change is crucial to adapting successfully. Many people are finding that diversifying their income sources actually gives them more security than relying on a single employer, especially in industries prone to layoffs or automation. Now, let's talk about who these multi-job holders actually are. Because the stereotype is not just outdated, it's actively misleading. Analysis shows that many multiple job holders now hold college degrees, meaning educated workers are turning to extra work out of necessity or strategic choice. The phenomenon spans industries in ways that reveal how deep this shift goes, from service jobs and gig work to professional and white-collar positions where people might work a corporate job during the day and do freelance consulting at night. According to demographic data, women are slightly more likely than men to hold multiple jobs. In certain age and race categories, it's 5.7% for women versus 4.7% for men, which reflects both opportunity and necessity. Younger workers, especially those aged 20 to 24, are particularly affected. And this makes sense when you consider student loan burdens, entry-level wages that haven't kept pace with living costs, and a job market that increasingly expects years of experience for positions that used to be stepping stones. Single parents face perhaps the most acute pressure, trying to cover childcare costs that can rival or exceed rent in many markets while also providing for basic needs. Part-time main job workers often take on additional work simply because their primary employer won't offer full-time hours. And people in unstable sectors, think retail, hospitality, and other service industries with high turnover and seasonal fluctuation, often have no choice but to maintain backup income streams. This challenges the traditional narrative in fundamental ways. The narrative that multiple jobs equals low-skill or uneducated workers simply doesn't match reality anymore. So the new moonlighters aren't just baristas or delivery drivers. They might be your neighbor who works in marketing and drives for a rideshare company on weekends. Your child's teacher who tutors online in the evenings. Someone with a college degree and a corporate title who freelances on the side because their salary doesn't cover their city's cost of living. What's important to understand is that many of these workers aren't victims of circumstance. They're adapting to new realities and often building skills and networks that wouldn't be possible in a traditional single-job career path. The challenge is ensuring this adaptation doesn't come at the cost of health, family time, or long-term well-being. Let's dig deeper into the types of jobs people are taking on, because this reveals something important about the future of work in America. According to recent Bureau of Labor Statistics data, among multiple job holders, a substantial fraction holds their second job in a contingent or alternative arrangement. We're talking independent contractors, temp workers, on-call employees, and freelancers operating in what's sometimes called the gig economy. In 2023, out of approximately 8.4 million multiple job holders, around 1.9 million held their second job as independent contractors. That's a significant chunk, and it doesn't even count all the informal work arrangements that don't show up in official statistics. And younger workers, those aged 16 to 24, are far more likely to have contingent second jobs than older workers, partly because they're more comfortable with app-based platforms. This rise of gig and contract-based second jobs points to increased labor market flexibility, which sounds positive and in some ways genuinely is positive. Flexibility can mean freedom to work when and where you want, to turn down jobs that don't fit your schedule, to scale up or down based on your needs. But it also points to instability, fewer benefits like health insurance or retirement contributions, and unpredictable hours that make it hard to plan your life. Many people rely on these gigs to fill income gaps. Part-time shifts that fit around their main job, evening and weekend work, online freelance work that can be done from anywhere, delivery jobs that require minimal startup costs, and temp assignments that might lead to permanent positions. The variety is actually remarkable, and it reflects genuine innovation in how work gets organized and compensated. Nationally, this signals a fundamental shift in the U.S. employment model, from stable full-time single-job careers to patchwork job portfolios where individuals manage their own risk and opportunity. And for many people, that second job isn't a side hustle in the fun entrepreneurial sense. It's a necessity to bridge the gap between what their main job pays and what their life costs. But here's what's encouraging. People are getting better at navigating this landscape. Online communities share strategies for maximizing gig income while minimizing burnout. Educational resources help workers understand how to price their services, manage taxes on contract income, and build emergency funds that provide a buffer against income volatility. The tools and knowledge to succeed in this environment are more accessible than ever before. But what does this actually look like for the people living it? And what toll does it take on their daily lives? Reporting from 2025 shows that workers juggling two jobs often struggle with sleep, mental health, and family time in ways that compound over months and years. They describe inconsistent schedules, full-time day job with relatively predictable hours, then a gig or part-time shift at night or on weekends that might change week to week. That leaves little time for rest or personal life. This has serious ripple effects. Higher stress levels that manifest in physical health problems, risk of burnout that can knock someone out of the workforce entirely, less time for education or skill development that could improve long-term earning potential, and reduced quality of life that affects relationships and mental health. And here's the kicker. Many workers find they're not earning much more than single job peers when you account for additional expenses like transportation, work clothes, and childcare. Some analyses show that additional income from second jobs barely outweighs the extra hours and stress when you calculate the real hourly rate after expenses. A worker might bring in an extra $1,000 a month from a second job, but after paying for gas, vehicle wear and tear, and other costs, they're clearing maybe $600 or $700. That's still meaningful money for many families, but it's not the windfall that the gross income suggests. But here's what's important to hold on to. Awareness of these challenges is growing, and awareness is the first step toward change. Workers are organizing in new ways, using social media to share information and strategies. Policymakers are beginning to recognize that gig workers and multiple job holders need protections that don't currently exist. Companies are experimenting with benefit structures that accommodate non-traditional employment. The conversation is shifting from "this is just how it is" to "how can we make this work better for everyone involved?" Let's talk about what's actually being done to address these challenges, because solutions are emerging even if they're not moving as fast as the problems. At the policy level, several states have passed or are considering legislation to extend certain protections to gig workers and independent contractors. California's AB 5 represented an attempt to reclassify many gig workers as employees entitled to benefits. New York has experimented with minimum pay standards for delivery workers. Seattle implemented paid sick leave requirements that cover a broader range of employment arrangements. At the federal level, there's growing discussion about portable benefits, systems where health insurance, retirement contributions, and other benefits are tied to individuals rather than employers. This would allow someone working multiple part-time or contract jobs to accumulate benefits across all their income sources. Several pilot programs are testing different models, and while nothing has achieved scale yet, the momentum is building. Some companies are also recognizing that the old model doesn't serve their interests either. High turnover is expensive, and burned-out workers are less productive. Forward-thinking employers are offering more flexible scheduling, investing in training that increases wages, and providing benefits even to part-time workers. These companies are finding that treating workers better actually improves their bottom line through increased retention and productivity. On the individual level, workers are getting smarter about managing multiple income streams. Personal finance education tailored to gig workers helps people understand estimated tax payments, retirement savings when there's no employer match, and how to build emergency funds despite irregular income. Time management strategies help people protect sleep and family time, even with complex schedules. There's also a growing number of workers who've deliberately chosen multiple income streams as a strategy rather than accepting them as a burden. They might keep a stable part-time job for reliable base income and health insurance while building a business on the side. Or they might combine freelance work in their area of expertise with passive income from investments or online content creation. Take the example of educators who've used tutoring platforms and online course creation to significantly increase their income while maintaining teaching positions they're passionate about. Or healthcare workers who pick up extra shifts through staffing apps that let them work when they want. Or professionals in fields like software development, design, and writing who've built consulting practices that eventually provided both higher income and more satisfaction than traditional employment. These aren't isolated cases of extraordinary luck or talent. They're examples of strategic thinking applied to the new realities of work. The key insight is treating multiple income streams as a portfolio to be actively managed, rather than a collection of desperate measures. Just like financial advisors recommend diversifying investments, career advisors are increasingly recommending diversifying income sources to reduce risk and increase opportunity. This doesn't mean everyone should quit their job and become a freelancer, and it doesn't mean the current system is fine as is. What it means is that while we work towards systemic solutions, individuals can take steps to improve their own situations. Those steps look different for different people, based on skills, obligations, and opportunities. But the underlying principle is the same. Understand the landscape, play to your strengths, and build multiple safety nets. So where does this leave us, and what's the path forward? The rise in multi-job holding among Americans ties directly to rising living costs, inflation that hits basic necessities hardest, housing pressure that's reached crisis levels in many markets, and wage growth that simply hasn't kept pace. What once may have been a side gig has become, for many, either a bare minimum necessity or a strategic choice to build financial security in uncertain times. This represents a fundamental shift in the American social contract, the unspoken agreement about what a full-time job should provide. That contract is being rewritten right now. If current trends continue without intervention, the single-job middle-class dream that defined American prosperity for generations may continue eroding. But here's what gives hope. None of this is inevitable. We're in a period of transition, and transitions create opportunities for positive change. By 2027, two-job households might become a recognized norm in large metro areas, but that recognition could trigger meaningful policy responses. We might see housing supply initiatives, stronger labor protections for gig workers, and renewed debates over living wage laws that actually grapple with what it costs to live in different parts of the country. We might also see cultural shifts in how we think about work and success, moving away from the idea that working multiple jobs is a sign of failure, rather than adaptation. So, what can you personally do with this information? First, get informed about your options and rights. Understand what protections exist for different types of work in your state. Learn about financial strategies that work for irregular income. Connect with communities of people navigating similar challenges. Second, think strategically rather than just reactively. If you need additional income, consider which options build skills or connections that compound over time. Look for opportunities that fit your life, rather than forcing your life to fit around bad jobs. Third, take care of yourself in ways that are sustainable long-term. Multiple jobs can work if you're strategic about rest, boundaries, and protecting the things that matter most. Find the balance that works for you. Fourth, advocate for systemic changes alongside managing your individual situation. Support policies that take these issues seriously. Share your story when it's safe to do so. Vote with your feet and your dollars by supporting businesses that treat workers fairly. And finally, remember that you're not alone in this, and you're not failing if one job isn't enough. The system has changed, and recognizing that truth is empowering rather than defeating. Millions of people are navigating the same challenges, and together we're figuring out what work looks like in the 21st century. The future of work in America is being written right now by the choices individuals make and the policies we collectively support. It's not predetermined, and it's not hopeless. So stay informed, stay strategic, stay connected, and don't give up on the idea that work should provide not just survival, but dignity, security, and opportunity. If this video gave you a clearer picture of what's really happening out there, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the economic forces shaping our lives. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.